Welcome to Power Up, the podcast that uncovers the unique challenges women leaders face today. Join your hosts, Nat and Kristen, as we dive into the tough topics and provide actionable insights you can apply right now. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. We get the absolute pleasure of chatting to, oh my gosh, tens. I was going to say hundreds of women each week. I mean, some weeks it is hundreds, but for the most, on average, it's like tens of women. And there just seems to be this time of year or some common themes or some new themes or some interesting themes that have emerged. And so I thought I would share what I've been hearing with Nat, what we've been bouncing around and chatting about. And Nat, you're going to share a kind of a common theme with me. We're going to see where we land. I think it probably will dictate a couple of podcast episodes, but I just thought we should roll that way. But first, any interesting or random updates from you, Nat?
Well, before we started did you just prod yourself in your eye with your glasses?
No, I'm good. Just getting them on here so I look a bit
Kristen very
smarter.
quickly put lipstick on before we started recording because we keep threatening to put out the video of these, and then we freak ourselves out because we're like, we are literally sitting often in our, like, home clothes. We probably are unrecognizable. I remember in the episode where I said one of my work peeves was people who had a photo that was like 20 years old. And I was like, if people ever see us on a stage and then us podcasting, they're like, are those two the same people? Anyway, I didn't put on lipstick and I don't look amazing today because I just ran up a mountain.
A mountain?
I ran up Mount Vic. I didn't even run up the full of Mount Vic. We had to drop the dog off to fail his adoption test, and I ran to the top from there with a few walking breaks, but not many. I was very
Good
impressed
on
with
you.
myself. I know,
Good on
but
you.
that's my excuse. That was actually my way of humble bragging about and really trying to throw you under the bus with the lipstick and the
Can I just say there
glasses.
was like nothing humble about anything in that? There was like literally nothing humble, but I love that you're going there.
It's like passive aggressive. I'm just aggressive. I just remove the first word and just go with the, like, guts of it.
Yeah, exactly. No,
But no,
well
we've just had a
done.
long weekend. It was a nice long weekend.
Yeah,
Did
yeah,
you have
yeah,
a
we
good
have.
weekend?
Oh my gosh. I was just saying to my friend this morning who I chat with on most of my doggy walks, I was just saying that I'm in an unhelpful loop of not sleeping well so that I'm tired and don't get myself to like have some proper cardio or weightlifting. And then because I don't do that, then I don't sleep well. So I'm in an awful cycle. I've got a session tomorrow morning and I'm going to reset, which is great because you can always start fresh. So
My
it wasn't a
parents
bad
also have a
weekend.
box of melatonin for you. I need to get it and give it to you.
See, I need it.
Did I
Yeah,
tell
great.
you though they brought back 2 boxes for you, and then I gave mum one of our gummies, a couple of our gummies to try, and she's like, I think I'm gonna keep one of these boxes."
They work. See?
Yeah.
I know, I
Well, and
love it. I
also
love
she's
it.
probably kind of like you when it comes to sleeping, like, she really struggles to get to sleep. She used to wear a big white billowy nightie when I was a teenager, and we'd come home and there'd just look like a ghost around the house because 'cause she'd just be wandering the house at nighttime. So yes, you will get some melatonin. But yeah, it is a terrible cycle, isn't it? When you're like you wake up feeling like, "Ugh."
I know, it is a
Um,
terrible cycle. But I did get out and walk, and I do have to tell one random story about my walk this morning. It's a very short story, but nonetheless, and this is to all of our allies that are listening or to those that can pass this message on to allies, please. When you're a woman and walking alone in a bush, first of all, there are all sorts of risks that are going in your head that you are actually going into a relatively deserted part of a given city, right? When you're going into a bush. Now, granted, I've got a dog and I do walk my dog. However, I might point out she isn't a German Shepherd
I was
and
gonna
she
say, I
is
hate
not a
to break it
Rottweiler.
to Juno, but Juno is not super
Yeah.
threatening.
She is a Cocker Spaniel, and she is relatively vacant in her, up there. So, I have no idea how she would react to a threat, but I can't imagine I would be all that safe. So I do actually like chatting during my dog walks for safety's sake. But nonetheless, this is a something unfortunate that women do have to deal with when we go into walks. So who do I encounter
Wait, can I say
partway?
very quickly, because I've seen
Yeah.
because there's the hashtag not all men, but I've seen on Instagram recently, there was a thing about, like, if you got given 10 Big Macs and 1 out of every 10 was a rotting, stinking pile of mess, but you didn't know which one it was, would you eat any of the Big Macs? And people are like, "No." And they're like, Yeah, that's how women feel walking alone in places like this because, yeah, 9 out of 10 people are fine, but you don't wanna risk the one, and you can't tell which one
This
is
is
the
right.
one. So context
That's
to
right.
allies.
And then you put a stat, then you put yourself at risk in terms statistically speaking. You have to go and live. However, we generally are putting ourselves at risk, which is why I recall in my 20s walking I used to live in Vancouver, relatively big city. Part where I live wasn't all that safe. So I'd walk right down the middle of the street where the street lights hit. So I got used to that. Anyway, so halfway through my walk in the bush this morning, I come across a single guy. So right away, it's like, ugh, I'm in the middle of the bush. I'm 2K in, and there is a single guy there, which is not a great feeling. And normally it's the quick, like, little check the eyes and then move on. But I had to notice his t shirt. And his t shirt had a picture of a woman on it. And the big red words at the top said the Manson massacres. It's like, I'm in 2
It's
kilometers
like
into a bush.
101 on how to look as threatening as humanly possible.
Why would you go on a morning walk and wear a shirt about,
I think it's
massacres?
because it's hashtag privilege. It's if you've never I I actually don't know this for sure, but my talking to a bunch of men in my life, it has never even occurred to them to see walking alone in the bush as anything other than a pleasant thing to do. And I think they find it truly shocking to realize that for 50% of the population, it is top of mind the entire time. Like, I am yet to meet a woman who is, like, carefree and walking through the bush, and if so he's probably, like, completely oblivious to how threatening that looks. And then men often do silly things because 'cause they're not aware of it either, and they, like, stare at you, or they slow down, or they follow you closely, and all stuff that you're like, "Threat, threat, threat."
I know. I like look behind. I look behind for at least 5 minutes. Anyway, so my actionable advice for men who are walking in the bush is grab your like My Little Pony, my Care Bear, my Pac-Man, grab some non like some non-threatening, grab a rainbows and butterflies t-shirt. Just grab a t-shirt that signals to me that you aren't a mass murderer. Thank you very much.
Or don't support
That
mass
is my
murder. And also there are actually while you're here, and if you are still here, there are some really good cues you can give as well. Like, I always really, really appreciate men who smile, wave, step out of the way. Like, there are men who literally just sort of glare at you. There are men who walk directly into your path. There are men who walk very slowly behind you. If you do anything, like, if you're thinking, "How would I make this experience as comfortable as possible for someone who probably feels quite threatened right now?" Do those things. And it generally looks like diffusing the situation, and, like, because I guarantee if you come across a random woman alone in the bush, she will be assuming that you are gonna murder her, which is probably quite a shock for a lot of
especially
men, but it's
when
true.
especially when you are wearing a t-shirt now. Anyway, okay, so that's my random story, but I want to chat about a key theme I've got. Do you want to start or shall I? Hmm. So this is a chat I've had with a bunch of people in the last week, and I think it's probably relatively universal at the moment. And it is that, for the most part, if you work in an organization, the majority of people, I'm not going to say the majority, that's not fair. There are many people who are feeling flat right now. They are verbalizing that they feel overworked, possibly underappreciated. They feel increasing volume of their role, like the classic, like do more with less. And as a result, there has been some behaviors that have come out that are increasingly noticeable and very concerning for a number of the women that I've been speaking with. And I'll just clarify what those are right away, because it like again, nothing dangerous based on a previous chat, but it is things like there.
No one's
I,
wearing, like, Manson family murders.
I know. I'm like, oh gosh, this isn't
What
like
is it?
physically
Ted
problematic
Bundy?
here. No,
I
no.
heart Ted
These
Bundy.
these are leaders that are working with people and take their roles very seriously, and they're working really hard, and they appreciate a lot is going on, but they're, locked in and taking ownership. What they've noticed is there's a motivation gap. I would classify it as that. There seems to be a real motivation gap, and how that is manifesting and how people are acting as a result of this motivation gap is their ownership and initiative is like rock bottom. So if there are problems to be solved, they're either not seen or people don't take responsibility for solving problems, and or they come to their leaders with problems as opposed to, I've noticed this is what I think we should do, or a solution or a suggestion as to where to from next. So there seems to be a lack of ownership, a lack of initiative, and there was some questions around that about why and what is going on. And there's some theories that have been brought up, some of them related to a lot of people are feeling stuck right now. They can't move on because there's not a lot of work out there. Other people are pointing to generational conversations. Is there something there? So I just thought I'd bring that up. That seems to be a key theme.
I am going to start with something very tangential, but we talk a lot about problems versus solutions. I think we need to change it to complaints and not solutions because if you come with a really good problem to solve, great. But if you come just complaining about everything, not great. I feel like, and we use the same terminology interchangeably. So I think somewhere along the line, we're going to have to fix that. I agree. I feel like when you are in an economy where you kind of have the general consensus is cling on to your job if you've got it, there's a real fear of redundancies. And I think this is a case globally because every time we talk to people in different countries or people visit, it's like the same doom and gloom everywhere now because this stuff is comparative. You're comparing it with the people around you. So even if some countries are in a worse state than others, if the people around you feel like things have gone backwards, you're gonna feel that too. I also think there's this just ongoing cost of living crisis, and so, we have some fabulous friends who work in finance, and their big message at the moment is if you're worried about paying your bills and you have financial instability, you can't turn up at work and be like, "Woo, I am here to" like, anytime you have stress and you're coming from a place of fear or stress or whatever, you're not gonna be operating at your best. And then I think the extra, I mean, we're just hypothesizing here, but the extra thing that I think has happened this time is just how long it's been going on for. Because, like, I remember back to the GFC, and granted, New Zealand was less badly hit than a lot of other countries. And I worked in tech. So I was like the opposite of badly impacted in many ways. Um, but that was like 18 months, I think, before we started seeing sort of a real recovery, whereas this has been, I think they call it a W shape of like, we had lots of growth and then we had COVID and then it felt like we're coming out of it and then we dropped back down and then it sort of felt like we may be going into like a double W, that we were lifting up again and then the Iran war and the oil crisis is starting to hit. And so there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And it's been going on for like 6 years now, and that is a long time for people to feel like it's tough and to still not see that there is, like, green shoots that are not just being mowed down by the next crisis.
Yeah, I think so. And I would add, probably got a couple extra things to that, but some, of course, are overlapping. And the first is that I think these big projects and big deliverables and expectations of big delivery is relentless. Like, I think possibly historically, you'd have this big build up and you'd deliver something and you just take a beat. And I think now it's like you're put on the next project or now we've got to do this. And so while I feel comfortable in that environment, I'm not convinced that's been the case for a lot of people and organizations that have had a little bit of extra padding or a little bit of extra space to celebrate and downtime possibly. So I think it's relentless. I think that's number 1. I think number
Can I dig
2.
into that before you move on to number 2? I think, like, we've been talking a lot sort of globally about the rise of AI and how it's gonna take jobs. What you're describing is it's already here, and the reality of working in that world is that work gets faster and it does get more relentless, and we're already seeing that with automation and AI, and my example of that is we talk about marketing, and, like, back in the day, you could do one big ad campaign and there'd probably be 6 months of work. Whereas now you've got like Instagram and you're putting out 10 reels a day. Like the quantity of output has grown exponentially to, and that's the busyness now. Like that is the busyness of the world is that you cannot win marketing with one ad campaign a quarter or a 6 month anymore. You have to win it with all sort like 10x, 100x output. And I think if you take that analogy to every other piece of work, if you're not upskilling, changing platforms, changing processes to and just accepting that that is how work has to go in order to succeed. Any organizations that are working at a pace that was fine 10 years ago are not going to succeed. We kind of have to take that on. And it's a really hard mindset shift, but it becomes a bit easier when you realize it's not me doing it, it's augmented me doing it, it's enhanced me doing it almost because I now have the tools that should, if I use them well, mean that I can actually increase my capacity substantially without increasing burnout or stress, and actually it could lower it a bit.
Possibly, which brings me to my second point, which you've introduced quite nicely, and that is change. And it is almost as though there used to be um, a new system or a process, or there was some form of change that you would work on, and then the change would be over. And I think what's happened is that, again, change is relentless, and people are almost expecting after this adoption of this tool, or after this process change, or after this restructure, everything's going to go back to normal. And I just got thinking, how do you promise people that change is here to stay? It is never like, I don't, whatever we did experience in the past, if we were in environments that did not change or failed to change, they are now effectively going to be out of business in due course. And therefore, it is like change is here to stay. So, how do we create these resilient, optimistic people that view that as an opportunity rather as a stage of this is going to be over? Like, how might we, this is the whole who moved my cheese, how do we kind of embed that a little bit? That's my second point is
I
change
w
is like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Mm.
wish we had a time capsule because I always feel like when we have these conversations, if we wound back the clock, let's say 10 years, would we generically have sort of been complaining about the same stuff? Like, I do think we have very short memories, and when times are good, we don't tend to recognize that they're good either. Like, we can look back and go, those were simpler times. But in the time, I think humans find it very hard to acknowledge that. So I think we have this concept, and sometimes the stories we tell ourselves of it used to be so good. I used to be so much less busy. It used to be so much more certain. And now it's really bad. And I'm like, did we feel that at the time though? Or did we feel like not that?
I I don't
Like, are we
know 'cause
comparing
or
now
I
with
can't.
hindsight? I think maybe that's the thing. It's like when you look back, what's happened and it's all 100% certain. So it feels nicely tied up in a bow. Those times were good. Whereas during those times, there was also uncertainty and change and all sorts of stuff. But we're not, we're looking at it from that lens anymore.
I also wonder if there is the way we work is constantly changing, and back then like you could like you could foreshadow what your year might look like, and you'd have your KPIs, and you'd go and you'd deliver, and you'd have your 9 to 5 or 9 to 7 or whatever it was. But I feel as though technology is moving so quickly that systems are constantly being upgraded, and how we communicate with one another is constantly being upgraded. And so, if we're to look back a decade ago, I'm just trying to think, Slack was probably just introduced. So, there has been an immense amount of technological change in the last decade, which has meant we've had to track along with it. So, I think the pace, and I think Intel has promised that too, like every the speed of processors is like, I don't know, there's like a chart on that. And I suspect there's a similar chart with technological advancements in the workplace that has required us to change, which is why we've got entire roles now called transformation. Like, that wouldn't have been a thing, right? I'm a transformation manager. That just wouldn't have even been a thing.
It's
So,
also,
yeah.
if I know people listen to Power Up for the conspiracy theories, so I'll give you one for free now.
Okay, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I am hearing more and more rumblings from the billionaires around it probably doesn't make sense to have 2 people working, and when we have all our automation and all our robots in place, we can go back to a wonderful world where one parent can stay at home with the kids and the other one can work, and of course, we know that's not true because they're not altruistic folk who are here to make the world a better place. They have figured out how they can cut half the workforce and keep all the profits to themselves. And it very scarily aligns with this kind of rollback to more traditional gender stereotypes, et cetera, that we're seeing all over the place. So there is an argument that there is very little motivation for organizations to make it feel easy for us all to be working because it is in their best interest to cut headcount and, like, get the robots to do
I
it.
know. Too early. It's a great theory, and I know there's a bunch out there, and some are scary right down to this isn't going to be as serious as we think it is because frankly, my robot sucks.
Well, and also
Like,
I
and
think, like
lies to me all the time.
oh, mine, yeah, ugh, but I do think as an optimist, I do think no, as a grounded optimist, I do think we do lack imagination in the sense of we don't know what's possible going forward. And at every significant step in human history, no one's, and that's the kind of classic. If you ask people what they wanted, they'd want a faster horse. Like, we cannot imagine what a car might look like. And actually, I saw something the other day about drones. As bad as war is, the Ukraine war has led to just so much innovation when it comes to drones that it's no longer like sci-fi to think that personalized 1 to 5 person transport is gonna become possible, in drones, and you think, yeah, because like, however many only a couple of 100 years ago, the concept of a car seemed, like, outlandish, and it's not really evolved that much from there, so we're probably due this giant jump forward, and every time that stuff happens, more jobs are created or more and different jobs are created, and different ways of doing things are created, so I don't think it is doom and gloom, but we are unfortunately positioned in the almost the transformation stage where we're moving from one type of economy to another. And that means we're going to feel the unfair burden of that change, which is probably why people are feeling like, your kids and the kids behind them, they'll have 10 years, 5 years of this, and they'll be like entering a new workforce and we'll have a maybe not more certainty, but slightly different ways of working or not. Whereas we're like trying to juggle like the old ways, the new ways, the new ways, and it's exhausting.
You've led very nicely to my 3rd and final point. Thank you so much for introducing that, and this is an entirely different podcast episode, so I don't think we should dig into it, but that is what I alluded to earlier of a key underlying factor, question mark, in the motivational gap is generational. And so, a couple things just quickly to say about that. We've got someone to talk about the different generations and values and when those get locked in as it pertains to your broadly speaking generation. We've got someone coming up in Power Suit chatting later in
That
June.
and
So
then
you should
that's for
join.
members, right?
Yeah, for members
Yeah.
only. So join to get that either live and or after the fact on demand. And then I've got a podcast which I haven't listened to, and it's Simon Sinek speaking with someone else. I've got it open. I'm going to watch it, and then I suggest we tackle this, some interesting generational chats. Nat,
I just laugh at getting all my information from Instagram, but the my favorite one recently on generations was must have been a Gen Alpha or a Gen Z going, all the boomers think we're like the most fragile generation, but you people used to be terrified of drinking from the same tap as a black person.
yeah, I
It's
did
like
see that.
it's
Yeah,
like this
right.
totally different view where they're like, you people were the most fragile. You have like scared of all sorts of things. And now you look at us who are like pretty robust, healthy, open-minded people.
I love it. Well, thank you for entertaining my theme. Have you got in 4 minutes a theme, Nat?
No, I actually think that your theme you've clocked, I've clocked too. Like, I do feel like in saying that, I think there is a point you get to maybe at a stage of career, life stage, and I am surrounded a lot with parents who have kids who are entering 10 years or exiting 10 years. They're at pretty good stages in their career, they earn pretty good money. And there's almost a sense in that group of optimism and of sort of not being controlled by the uncontrollables and going, "This is this, and there is gonna be nonstop change and all the stuff we've talked about, but I am going to go with it, and I'm not gonna fight it, and I'm not gonna resist it because can't, and I've been through it enough times now to know that I can't." And go with it, find opportunities where I see them, take breaks when I can take breaks, and just, like, kind of recognize work isn't always the be all end all, and if you can't control what's happening in the moment, do what you can, and then go and do other things as well and invest in other parts of your life. And that tends to be within my bubble because, like I say, all those factors. But no, I've noticed the exact same thing as you and this real sense of inertia almost of like, I don't know what to do. I don't feel like I can go along with this. I'm being asked to change all the time. And even for anyone listening who's not in Wellington, New Zealand, we had an announcement from our government, what was it, like a week or two ago, saying that they're going to lose they want to take our government headcount down to 1% from 1.2% of the population. And the the justification for that was AI. Granted, in my opinion, they did exactly what every board and every leadership team is doing at the moment and going, AI will solve it without any frameworks or training or evidence of how it can be used well in the organizations. They're probably gonna have to spend a fortune on consultants, et cetera, et cetera. But the conversation around it is really interesting, and what I find is I personally believe governments and leaders should make bold calls, and it's something that we really struggle with in small countries where, and in our small country with a 3-year electoral cycle where no one's incentivized to think 100 years ahead, they're just thinking about the next election. So I do, as a proponent of, like, let's make, and I don't wanna say bets, but, like, make some well thought through bets on the future. What I find really interesting is the pushback against that is all, "What about me? What about my job?" I completely agree on an individual level of this is gonna really be tough for a lot of people. Absolutely. And we have to also start having these conversations from a more macro level where it's like, but is this going to be good for us in 20 years' time, 50 years' time, 100 years' time? Because we are entering a world that, we're having aging populations, money's flowing differently, all of that stuff is true, and so I just think it's a good opportunity, and from the themes that we've both spotted, to sort of start to think, use it to stretch and think, big picture. How might this end up, putting myself in the short-term pain aside, how might this end up better? And I think transformation is always tricky, and, like, I think even from a city point of view, if we lose a lot of public servants, they're talking about, like, 10,000 in a city of the size of, like, 500,000 people or something, is it? Is that how big we are? Um, those 10, like, my dream in 10 to 20 years' time is that we're not a government town, we're a tech town that has government here, and if we and you have to work towards that. So, all of that waffle to say, this it is a very hard time to get out of your own head and your own struggle because those struggles are very real. It is also a time to think about what does the world look like in 10, 20 years, because I guarantee it's not gonna look like this, and if we don't start taking action now and doing things differently and adopting AI and getting comfortable working, in different ways, it you're the person who's left behind. Like, the change is happening anyway.
Yeah, I know. That I do I agree. I think it would benefit self-awareness, curiosity, um, I think we'd all benefit by that. Just taking stock of what's going on. And then equally, what's changed? I think it's probably just a season of self-awareness of like, why am I feeling this way right now? Like specifically, because when I did ask a lot of these people, are the workloads higher? I'm not suggesting they're not, but their perception was that the workloads were not higher, but that it was big, complex work projects. So I think complexity has increased, relentlessness has increased, like you said, adoption of new things has increased, but I think, yeah, like, to
We
your
also,
point,
like,
not
5 years ago, went fully remote, rolled it back to fully in office or partially in office, and have not redesigned work to work. So, like, there's all these, like, poor practices that put a huge mental load burden on all of us and time load that no one, I mean, we have our rants about this, don't actually necessarily have any impact on productivity. The note I would leave on, and you can leave on another note, is I really loved on Friday when I had just gotten out of the car to go treading with my friend who's just had a baby and my friend who's about to have a baby, and we were like, "Let's just take an hour at lunchtime," and I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast, but I had a couple of weeks where the calendars weren't, like, crammed with events and meetings and stuff, and, then you called me as I was walking in, being like, "I don't feel guilty," which was hilarious because I was like, "Mhm." But I thought the lesson we took from you not feeling guilty, but calling me to tell me you're not feeling guilty, and me going treading while you were thinking about going surfing and not having the, like, max productive week is, in times like this, it's more important than ever to recognize that running as fast as possible is the fastest way to burn out and not much else. Like, you're not being more productive, you're not getting more stuff done, you're not adding value, as much value to the world. You have to take breaks and recalibrate and think about what the right next thing to do is. And that just does not come from running, running, running. So if you are feeling overwhelmed, I think we've covered this in the last couple of weeks as well, but, like, give yourself permission to just like realize that life exists outside of some of this big, scary, stressful stuff. And it's okay to read a book or go for a walk and meet someone who loves the Manson murders with your dog.
Okay, I do love that, except for the last part. My little tip would be, and think I sent this reel to you yesterday. It was about we actually have more time than we did 18 months ago. I think it was 18 months. We have more time.
All the time, it keeps improving, I think.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Because of our dumb robots. But anyway, we've got more time, which doesn't feel like it. But what was interesting about this research is that our time, while we might have more of it in sum total, it is actually chunked up more than ever. So we've got 10 minutes here, 15 minutes here, 5 minutes here, half an hour here. And what we tend to do, and we do a whole mini masterclass on this, is we do not rest, breathe, be deliberate about those little micro breaks. And what we do is we scroll, we watch news. And so it's this relentless stream wave of information into our brains. And so that's a whole other session, become a power suitor if you want to help address that. But that is kind of interesting to think about. We actually have more time. It's just tiny chunks and
How we
start to,
use those
again,
chunks.
be self-aware about how are you using those tiny chunks. That's
And
it.
I would say, like, if we leave behind all the influencers and the, Bitcoin bros who are now AI bros, um, I think depending on who you speak to, you will hear very different answers about having more time. I have friends who have really adopted AI in their day-to-day life, as have we, and we get a lot more done. I wouldn't say I'm working any harder than I was 5 years ago, and I think maybe some of this divide and this sense of relentlessness is because some people are augmenting their work and they are able to utilize tools to get a lot more done in a lot less time, and if you are not using those tools, it feels like you're falling behind, in all honesty, because you can't do 10x this amount of stuff or 2x the amount of stuff or even point 0.5 more than you used to be able to do. And that is going to become a bigger and bigger divide. So plug for PowerSuit as well as we are going to be talking, interweave AI into most stuff we do now in terms of like, go to your robot and try this thing to help you prioritize, help you manage your calendar, whatever we're talking about, we give you tips for that. But we are going to have a couple of sessions that are just like totally judgment free. Don't assume you know anything at all. Get your robot set up properly. Address some of the stuff that power suiters really care about, like making sure their privacy is up to date. Think about the ethical stuff. Get a tool set up in a way that it knows you a little bit and start using it. And we're going to run a couple of those sessions. So if you are someone who is feeling like, um, I guarantee there will be ways that you can kind of get out of that a little bit. But even if you are doing everything perfectly, it is always worth stopping and going, is there anything else I could be doing? And being really open minded to maybe there is a slightly different way of working.
On that note, check out powersuit.com and let us know how you're going, even on this chat. Would love to hear if you're feeling busier than you used to, or generally how you're going. Reach out. We'd love to chat. And we
I
will
don't have
catch you.
a word origin today. Etymologied. I haven't etymologied. Have you?
No,
Ah,
but I want to chat influencers next episode. So let's do that then. Put a pin in it.
okay.
Okay.
I'll find some etymologies. I love that
Okay.
word.
All right. Catch y'all next time, everyone.
Bye.